I flew in for my sister's wedding, heart thrumming with excitement, only to find out the date had changed weeks ago. She never told me, but somehow she made sure my ex knew. The airport buzzed with life, voices echoing, footsteps rushing past. But all I felt was a growing sense of joy, a breathless anticipation building in my chest. I'd spent weeks preparing, rearranged my work schedule, picked out the perfect dress, booked my flight months in advance, just to be there for Liz's big day. And now, finally, I was here. Wheeling my suitcase through the terminal, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message. Just landed. Can't wait for tomorrow. No reply. Not unusual. Liz had always been a bit spotty with her texts. I brushed it off and headed for the taxi stand. But by the time I reached the hotel, something felt off. I approached the front desk, offering a polite smile. "Hi, I should have a reservation under Natalie Carter. I'm here for the wedding." The receptionist frowned, fingers tapping her keyboard. "Wedding?" I nodded, adjusting my purse. "Yeah, Liz Carter's wedding. There should be a room block for guests." She kept typing, then her face shifted. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing under that name. Are you sure you've got the right hotel?" I froze. Of course I had the right hotel. Liz had sent it to me herself. My voice tightened. "Can you check again?" She did. Still nothing. A knot formed in my stomach as I pulled up the old message thread and reread the details Liz had sent. Right hotel, right address, but no wedding. Maybe it was a mistake. "I'll check with my sister," I murmured, stepping aside and hitting call. It rang once, then voicemail. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Cold crept up my spine. Maybe she was busy. Maybe the signal was bad. But deep down, something felt wrong. My hands shook as I opened social media and searched her name. And there it was, a full wedding album. My breath caught. Liz in a white dress, glowing, her husband smiling beside her. A sea of guests, joy etched across every face. The wedding had already happened. I scrolled faster, heart pounding. Beneath one photo was a caption. "Best day of my life. So grateful for everyone who came to celebrate with us." The comments were flooded with love. I checked the date. 3 weeks ago. My knees buckled. She had changed the date and never told me. My ears rang. I kept scrolling, every image another blow to the chest. Our parents were there, our aunts, our cousins. Everyone had been invited. Everyone except me. And just when I thought the sting couldn't get sharper, I saw him. Finn. In the background of a group photo, laughing, comfortable, like he belonged. Like he'd always belonged. Like he deserved a place at my sister's wedding more than I did. I covered my mouth, breath shallow, chest heaving with disbelief. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some careless oversight. It was intentional. Liz hadn't forgotten to tell me she had chosen not to. She'd made room for Ethan, but not for me. The weight of that hit harder than anything else. I stood frozen in the hotel lobby, staring down at my phone as if the screen itself had betrayed me. My chest tightened until it felt like something inside might splinter. I had spent my life being the good sister. I'd flown across the country, rescheduled everything. Spent hundreds, maybe more, just to show up for her. And she didn't even have the decency to let me know I wasn't welcome. But she made sure my ex had a seat at her table. I felt sick. The receptionist was eyeing me now, her gaze flickering with cautious concern, like she wasn't sure if she should say something. I forced myself to move, dragging my suitcase toward the hotel lounge. My knees barely held as I sank into a chair. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. But all I could do was stare at those photos, each one a fresh blow, each one louder than the last. How long had she been planning this? Had she known all along that I wouldn't be there? Or had she made that decision somewhere along the way, when she decided I no longer mattered? And why Ethan, the man who'd promised me forever, only to rip everything apart? The man I'd spent months avoiding, skipping family events just so I wouldn't have to see his face. I had done the hard work. I had picked up the pieces he left behind and slowly, painfully, built something new. Something just mine. And now, my own sister had made him part of something sacred. Something I wasn't even allowed to witness. My hands clenched tight. White knuckles, trembling fingers. For years, I was the one who reached out. I remembered birthdays, I booked the flights. I showed up, even when it was hard, even when I felt like I was the only one trying. And this was how she repaid me. I thought back to our last conversation. She'd been calm, kind even. Let me believe everything was fine. Let me spend money on a dress. Let me wrap up a gift. Let me believe I was wanted. All while she knew I wasn't. Tears burned at the back of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not this time. I wasn't going to be the bigger person. I wasn't going to beg her for answers. Because deep down, I already knew the truth. She never wanted me there. I sat alone in that hotel lounge, the wedding album still glowing on my screen, as if the longer I stared, the more sense it might make. But it didn't. It couldn't. Because there's no justification for what she did. I wasn't just forgotten. I was excluded. And the more I thought about it, the more it all began to unravel. Not just this moment, all of it. Our whole childhood. The signs had always been there. Liz and I were never close. Not the way sisters are supposed to be. But not for lack of effort on my part. I was always trying. She was the star, the golden child. Loud, charming, quick with a cruel comment she could twist into a joke before anyone noticed the sting. And me? I was the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who didn't need the spotlight. Or so they all told me. I was the one who aced her classes without being asked. The one who never stirred up trouble, never missed a curfew. The one Mom and Dad could rely on, always. And somehow, instead of that making them proud, it made me disappear. Liz? She was the center of gravity. If we both got in trouble, I was the one expected to apologize. If I had something she wanted, our parents would say, "Give it to her, you're older, be the mature one." And when she messed up, they jumped to her defense. She didn't mean it that way, Natalie. You know how Liz is. She just likes being the center of attention. Don't take it so personally. And for the longest time, I didn't. I told myself that's just how sisters were. That one day we'd grow out of it. That eventually she'd see me. But Liz never outgrew it. She just got more skilled at pushing me out of frame. By the time we hit our teens, it wasn't just our family who revolved around her. It was everyone. Liz had the loud laugh, the big friend group, the stream of boyfriends, the endless string of parties. I was the afterthought, the tag-along. Invited only when it fit her narrative, and cast aside when it didn't. Like the time she threw a birthday party and told me Mom and Dad didn't want me around, or when she stole my favorite dress, ruined it, then rolled her eyes when I got upset. "You're being dramatic." Or the day she forgot to pick me up from school, then laughed, said I should have figured it out on my own. There were never consequences, because Liz could do anything, and our parents would find a way to excuse it. And the truth that haunts me most? I let it happen. I let it happen because I thought, if I kept being the bigger person, she'd eventually respect me. If I didn't fight back, maybe she'd stop treating me like I didn't matter. If I just tried harder, maybe she'd finally love me the way I'd always loved her. Then came Ethan. I met him in my mid-20s, 4 years together. I thought he was it. My forever, until he wasn't. And Liz? She never once asked how I was after he left. Never checked in. Instead, she made sure to keep him in the conversation, dropping his name like a knife. I ran into Ethan. He looks amazing. Ethan was asking about you. He still thinks you're incredible. I don't get why you two didn't work. You were so good together. Every word chipped at the cracks I was trying to seal. She didn't care how much it hurt. My pain had never been her concern. But this was beyond anything I thought she was capable of. She had invited him to her wedding, and not me. My jaw locked, breath sharp and uneven. I had spent my entire life trying to earn a place in this family. But now I had to ask, what was I even fighting for? To be in a room full of people who wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't there? To belong to something that was never mine to begin with? My hands shook as I pulled up Liz's number. For the first time in years, I wasn't going to let it go. I hit call. Voicemail. Tried again. Still voicemail. I let out a bitter laugh, hollow and sharp. Of course she wasn't answering. Liz was hiding. Because she knew. She knew exactly what she'd done. I sat there staring at my phone, heart hammering, breath shallow. Then I did something I'd never done before. I texted her. I saw the pictures. You changed the date. You never told me. The message delivered. I hesitated, then added. But you made sure Ethan was there. Silence. Then, the typing bubble. Liz. Nat, I can explain. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around the phone. I wasn't sure I even wanted to hear whatever excuse she was about to feed me. But I was done being the sister who swallowed her hurt in silence. So I typed back. Go ahead, explain. Because for the first time in my life, I needed her to say it. Out loud. No more dodging, no more pretending. There was a time when I would have sat there, stomach knotted, clinging to hope that she'd finally give me the explanation I'd always longed for. Not this time. This time, I didn't wait with bated breath. I set my phone down and stared out the hotel window, watching the city lights melt into one another, bright and meaningless. I had flown across the country for nothing. My suitcase sat untouched in the corner, still packed with the dress I'd bought just for her wedding. The one I'd tried on 3 times to make sure it was perfect. The gift I'd spent hours choosing and wrapping. Every detail, every effort, wasted. I'd shifted my entire life around for this, for her, and she hadn't even thought I deserved the truth. But Ethan did. That thought curled in my stomach like acid. She'd made sure he was there. She had gone out of her way to make sure he was part of the celebration. But not me. My phone buzzed. Liz's name lit up the screen. I opened the message. Look, I didn't want you to find out this way. A laugh escaped me, dry and cold. How exactly was I supposed to find out? The typing bubble appeared, then vanished, then came back. Liz again. It was a last-minute change. Things got complicated, so we had to move the date. My jaw clenched. 3 weeks ago is not last minute. Silence again. I could picture her scrambling for a way to make this sound less cruel. But I wasn't giving her room to twist the truth. You told Ethan. He told everyone else, but not me. This time, her reply was instant. I didn't think you'd want to come. I froze. The words hit like a punch to the chest. Sharp, shallow, hollow. That was it. That was all she had to say. Not a real apology. Not even a lie to make it sound better. She just didn't think I'd want to be there. Like I wasn't even worth asking. Like she'd made the decision for me, without hesitation. My jaw tightened, fingers trembling as I typed. That's not your call to make. You let me buy a dress, plan this trip, spend money, rearrange my entire life for this. And you didn't think to tell me? But you thought Ethan needed to be there? The typing bubble flickered, then disappeared. Nothing. I could already hear her voice in my head, slippery with false calm. It wasn't that big of a deal. You always make everything about you. Why are you so upset? It's not like we're that close anyway. And that was the truth, wasn't it? We weren't close. Not really. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how many birthdays I remembered, how many holidays I showed up for, how often I reached out, she had never wanted me in her life the way I had wanted her in mine. I set my phone down, breath shaking. I had spent my entire life making excuses for Liz, justifying the way she treated me, telling myself she didn't mean it, that maybe one day things would change, but not anymore. I unzipped my suitcase and pulled out the dress, the one I had picked with care, imagining the smiles, the pictures, the fleeting moment I might feel like I belonged. It was elegant, beautiful, and never meant to be worn. I folded it and stuffed it back into the suitcase. Then I grabbed the gift I had brought for her, carefully chosen, lovingly wrapped. I threw it straight into the trash, and in that instant, something inside me shifted. Not sadness, not guilt. I felt done. Done being the sister who kept trying. Done clawing my way into a family that had never made space for me. Done waiting to be seen. I wasn't just leaving this hotel. I wasn't just leaving the city. I was leaving them. Liz, our parents, the years of being overlooked, minimized, erased. Because I mattered. And if they couldn't see that, if they never had, that was on them. I picked up my phone one last time, my heart thudding steady as I typed, "Don't bother explaining. I get it now. Enjoy your marriage, your perfect little life. Just don't expect me to be part of it anymore." I hit send. Then I blocked her number. I booked the next flight home. And as I walked out of that hotel, no tears, no second thoughts, I realized something. I hadn't flown in for a wedding. I'd flown in to set myself free. I didn't cry on the plane. I thought I would. Thought I'd sit there staring out the window, letting the grief finally catch up with me, the weight of being cut out, of realizing I had spent my whole life chasing a connection that never existed. But I didn't feel sad. I felt lighter, like I had finally put down something I'd been carrying for far too long. That hope I'd carried for so long, that if I just tried hard enough, Liz would love me the way I loved her. I had finally set it down. Let it go. I got home late that night. The apartment greeted me in silence, the kind I liked. No drama, no forced conversations. No one waiting for me to play along, to fake a smile and pretend everything was fine. For the first time in days, I let out a deep, steadying breath, shook off the heaviness of it all. And then, I did something I hadn't done before. I blocked my family, not just Liz, not just her number or the carefully curated pictures she'd keep posting. I blocked her voice, her explanations I knew were coming, justifications wrapped in guilt and gaslight. I blocked Mom and Dad too, because I already knew what was next, the calls, the texts, the well-rehearsed confusion. Sweetheart, Liz didn't mean it like that. You two shouldn't be fighting over something so small. Family matters more than pride, Natalie. Number not this time. Because I knew the truth. They wouldn't have stood up for me. They never had. They would have told me to let it go, to be mature, to be forgiving, to be the bigger person, to keep playing the part I'd always played. The good daughter, the quiet one, the one who stayed in the shadows and never made waves. But I was done with that. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No missed calls. No obligations waiting. No anxiety creeping in as I reached for my phone. Just peace. I made coffee, sat by the window, watched the world move on outside, and I realized I could move on too. Later that day, I met up with an old friend, someone I'd neglected over the years while I poured myself into a family that never poured anything back. We talked for hours, laughed until my cheeks hurt. Nothing about Liz, nothing about the wedding, just life. Joy, the kind that asks for nothing in return. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I was exactly where I was meant to be. Not chasing after someone who never really saw me. Not trying to earn love that should have always been freely given. Just living. Then, a week later, something unexpected. A message from Aunt Linda. Hey, sweetheart, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I had no idea what Liz did until I talked to your mom. It wasn't right. You didn't deserve that. I stared at her words, my heart tightening, not with pain, but something softer, like being seen for the first time, because finally, someone wasn't making excuses. She wasn't telling me to forgive or forget. She was just telling the truth. I sat with it a while before typing back. Thanks, Aunt Linda, I appreciate that. She replied almost instantly. I don't know if you want to hear this, but Liz isn't handling it well. I think she expected you to come crawling back like always, but you didn't, and now, she doesn't know what to do with herself. I let out a slow breath, a faint, humorless smile tugging at my lips. Of course she was struggling. Liz had spent her entire life knowing I'd always come back. That no matter what she said, no matter how she treated me, I'd still be there. Loyal, dependable, waiting. But not anymore. Now she was learning what it felt like to be left behind. And that wasn't my burden to carry. She made her choice. That's all I replied, and I meant it. Because for the first time in my life, I was making a choice, one that didn't revolve around her. I wasn't waiting for Liz to change. I wasn't clinging to the hope of an apology that would never come. I wasn't standing by for my family to finally notice me. I saw myself. And I was done chasing people who had never once turned around to reach for me. A few months later, I booked a solo trip, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time or the courage, because I was too busy dropping everything for everyone else. I wandered through unfamiliar streets, met strangers who felt more genuine than people I'd known my whole life, built something new, something mine. And one evening, as I sat barefoot on a quiet beach, watching the sun melt into the horizon, my phone buzzed. A message. From Liz. I hadn't heard from her since the wedding. I looked at the screen, heart calm, pulse steady. Her words were simple. I don't know if you'll ever talk to me again, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I inhaled deeply, the salty air cool against my skin, the sound of the waves steady in my ears. Then, without hesitation, I set the phone down beside me. I didn't reply, because I didn't need to. I had spent a lifetime waiting for Liz to become the sister I always wished for, but now I saw the truth. I had never needed her to be anything at all. Some losses aren't losses. Some losses are freedom.